everybody. Welcome back to Colony Drop, a Gundam podcast, your favorite Gundam podcast. My name is Isaac.
And my name is Brian, and this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, from the anime to the music to the movies to the models to the clothes to the food. You name it, Isaac, we do it.
That's right, Brian. And right now, across America, is a very special time for Gundam fans, because this is perhaps the only time in known memory when the original movies have been released in cinema.
That is correct, Isaac. During October, as part of Anime Expo Cinema Nights, the original Mobile Suit Gundam compilation films were released in American theaters 2 days each only. I think it was only on a Sunday and a Wednesday for each movie. So the event has passed. We warned you. Hopefully you got out to your local Cineplex and saw the movies. Isaac and I made a big effort. I expended all of my dad capital to get out of the house to see these movies. And it was a great experience. I had a great time, Isaac. To give listeners some context, Isaac and I were the only ones in the theater for two of the movies. And then for one of the movies, there were two other guys in there with us.
Yeah, it was it was a packed house.
In Gundam's defense,
all the Gundam fans.
They put it on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights. So those are pretty slow days at your theater, even for the biggest movies. I was hoping there'd be more people, Isaac.
True, me too. But at the same time, you have to be so diehard to go to see a Gundam movie of any kind, like Gundam Freedom. Well, when we saw Freedom, it had way more people in it. But this time for the actual movies, I mean, we're already doing a niche within a niche.
Sure.
Or niche within a niche, however you want to pronounce that word. God, I hate that word.
And by way more people, Isaac means for Freedom, what do we have, 10?
Something like that.
Tops?
Possibly low teens. Think about it. The Gundam Seed movies were so new relative to what just came out now, 0079. So yeah, there's going to be more viewers, especially those who grew up with the Destiny and Seed. So to have anybody come out to this besides us, I was still kind of surprised, because you have to be very diehard to see the original series, especially consider things like the animation itself has not aged great. For me, it comes off as kind of charming how it kind of looks, but for the most part, yeah, I can see this absolutely turning off some people if they turned it on randomly on some type of channel or streaming service, which is where most people watch anime, which also explains why there wasn't a high turnout, I think.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, so Isaac, some background facts here. These are the compilation films for the original Mobile Suit Gundam TV series from 1979.
Mm-hmm.
Gundam Film 1, it does not have a subtitle. That really triggers my OCD, because Gundam Film 2 is called Soldiers of Sorrow. Gundam Film 3 is called Encounters in Space. But the first one is just called Gundam 1. This is like a New Hope situation. They got to go back and give it a title.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because everybody calls it, well, at least there's a sizable Gen X group, I think, and older, that calls it just Star Wars. The first one's always called Star Wars, not really a New Hope, and it's the same situation here, where they were like, well, we don't know if this will even work, so we'll just call it the Gundam movie.
If you had to give it a subtitle, Isaac, what would you call it?
Oh, God, off the top of my head, Gundam Launch, Amuro's First Step. I don't know.
Yeah, I like Gundam Rising. Isn't that the name? That's the name of the first episode, right?
That's great. There you go.
Yeah, so that Gundam 1 came out in March 1981 in Japan. Gundam 2 came out in July 1981, and Gundam 3 came out in March of 1982. They churned out these three compilation movies pretty quickly after the end of the TV series.
Yeah, why not? It was the dawn of VHS, right, and home video and stuff like that. That was coming up the 80s. So people could conceivably watch it. Or maybe Japan didn't release through VHS first. Maybe they did the Betamax thing first.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. But the content's already made. Companies will do what they do best, and let's try to make money. So they chopped up those episodes and crammed them into 3 movies.
Especially Sunrise. Sunrise loves Gundam compilation movies. But more importantly, Isaac, when did these come out in America? So the first Gundam one was released on a dubbed VHS in 1999. It was just called Gundam the Movie. The wiki says it was the first Gundam-related media to be available in America. I've actually never seen that dub. From what I understand, the dub is not very good. It was dubbed by a different company than did the TV series, so all the voices are different, the pronunciations are different. They had not yet decided on the way certain things would be pronounced. Instead of the Principality of Zeon, the wiki says they called it the Duchy of Zeon, which you still see if you were reading about Gundam back in the early aughts on the internet.
My headcanon is that all of those are correct at the same time.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's fine.
Yeah, because a duchy is a type of principality, and you also hear Xeon sometimes called the dukedom. You hear it sometimes
Yes.
called the sovereignty of Xeon. Dagon sometimes gets called the sovereign of Xeon. Another type of sovereign could be a duke.
Yeah, in that dub, he was called a duke. So there
Yeah,
you go.
so it all works at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's all fine. But anyway, it was originally dubbed by Animes. I think all three of them were, and they were all released on VHS in 1999. But in 2002, it was released in America again, but this time on DVD, but in sub only. I actually bought that back in the day, Isaac, but I
Oh
returned
wow.
it because I was hoping that it was dubbed. I didn't realize that it was sub only.
No, no. Back when you were like me.
Yes, back when I was like you and I had not watched a lot of subbed anime just because there wasn't back then. It was hard to kind of get subbed anime. I
Yeah.
didn't have good internet or anything. But man, that makes me sound real old, right? Good internet.
Yeah,
Now
wait
there's
for
just
the
the internet.
back in the day we had the dial-up
Oh
listeners.
yeah,
All you Zoomers, you had to no one could be on the phone. You had to connect it to the wall.
yeah. Can you imagine trying to download Gundam from Morpheus and
Kazaa.
But it was a beautiful DVD box set. I kind of regret taking it back now. I mean, you can re-buy it now. I think there is a DVD box set if you wanted to buy these films on Blu-ray. I think you can get them on Crunchyroll's website. I think they were put out by Right Stuff when they put out all the other Gundam DVDs. But anyway, it's now also available to stream on Netflix. But, Isaac, I had not seen these until they were released in theaters. Had you seen them before?
Yeah, I think I had. I don't remember if I watched them in their entirety or I watched like bits and pieces trying to like grab, sight of the areas where they'd created new animation.
Got it, yeah.
And they are noticeable, actually. It's not jarring, but when you see it, it kind of puts a smile on your face. It's actually impressive because you're seeing it and you're like, oh, it's new, but at the same time, you're like, oh, they really did their best to kind of make it really blend in with the time, and it looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I had that feeling in all three films. I think there was probably more new stuff as the films went on, right? Is that kind of the sense you got? I remember in the first film, there were like 3 or 4 times where we both agreed. We were like, that part's new. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we got more of those as it went on.
Yeah.
But I agree. I thought it looked great. You could often tell the new ones, though. It did look a little better, a little more cinematic than just
Right.
blowing up the TV animation. When you look at the TV animation on a huge theater screen, it does look even older than it already looks.
Yeah, it's we have to remember when these were shown, they weren't on flat screens. They were on like TVs that were essentially cubes, large cubes that had to sit in like your living room or something. God, you remember those screens? Like those TV screens that were
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like almost rounded, like bubbles.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. Wow. I mean, we weren't around, listeners,
I mean,
when the
yeah.
series first came out. But, like, we had TVs of, like, when we were growing up as 90s kids, like, the 90s era technology before the big transition. But it was much the same as far as, you could see TVs like that had that sort of round surface to them, like a bubble.
Oh,
Though
yeah.
I can imagine how much of it had looked. We'd have to talk to somebody that actually saw it back in the day. And for all we know, maybe their recollection is, oh, it was so crisp.
Well, things always are always better in your memory because you don't
Yeah.
you don't know it's bad, right? But like if you go
Right.
watch it today, yeah, the resolution it's not great, and it does look better if you go back and watch it on an old TV or old CRT monitor, oftentimes. But listeners, these films, it's a compilation of the TV series, so generally, broadly speaking, it's the same plot for the most part. There's changes here or there. So we're not going to recap the story or really re-review the series. I think
Xeon loses.
yeah, Isaac was holding out hope that they would change the ending, but unfortunately,
Like, no,
they still lost.
you bastards. Yeah.
So Isaac, I was thinking we could kind of just talk through, what we thought about the movies, any differences we noticed, anything that came to mind while you were watching them. Like, for example, in the very first movie, I was struck by, at least in the beginning of the movie, the lack of background music. Do you remember that? It was
Yeah.
like quiet for a while, and I was like, this is strange.
A little unsettling,
Yeah, and I feel like they fixed that as it went on, but it was
Yeah.
definitely odd in the beginning.
especially now with like all the anime we currently watch.
Oh, yeah.
There's always score. Like
Right.
there's not a moment of silence in any anime. Some animes are actually famous because of their background score and their background music. But in this case, it was like, wow, they really want us to hear the birds.
Or just their footsteps walking around the bridge,
Yeah. Metal on boots.
One of my biggest takeaways, Isaac, which I think you will agree with me on because you're a big dub person,
Oh.
is that watching these subbed made me really appreciate the dub. And
Yeah.
I think that's for 2 reasons. One, the dub is in a weird position because it's actually much newer than the film itself. So having a new audio track makes the show feel newer than it actually is. And the
Yeah.
sub track, while the sub is not bad, the Japanese audio is not bad, it definitely feels and sounds old. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I don't mean like you hear it scratch or anything like that, but you almost get you do get the feeling that you are watching an older anime, but something about how it hits your ear compared to a dub, the dub will always feel more modern.
If you've watched a lot of movies, there's a certain sound that 80s movies have or 70s movies have that 90s
Yeah.
movies don't and 80s movies don't. And it's just unique to that time period. We're losing that a little bit as I think we get more into the digital age. But if you rewind the clock and look at the decades, you can almost tell when a movie is from by how the audio sounds sometimes.
Yeah.
And this feels older, but you don't have that in the dub because the dub is 20 years newer than the actual film. And so
Yeah.
I think the dub sounds more modern and is actually easier to watch.
Absolutely. I'm always someone that enjoys the dub because I feel like stories visually in anime form were meant to be seen as they're played out. Now, I'm not taking away anything from like foreign films where you kind of have to see it in subtitles, especially if they're not dubbed. But I've never been the person that's could only appreciate anime by hearing it in Japanese and then reading the subtitles. For me, it's almost one extra step. So I understand there's beauty in the Japanese language. I understand some people really love hearing it, and as part of the experience for them, it's the pure Japanese experience for them, which is great. Good for them. But for me, I'm team dub all the way for all content.
I tend to go back and forth if I think one is better than the other. So, for example, I will never watch Cowboy Bebop any other way than dub. Cowboy Bebop
Yeah.
dub is superior than the sub. I will fight anyone over that
Sure.
assertion. But on the other hand, I will never watch the One Piece dub. The One Piece Japanese voice actors are just so talented and so much better than the dub to my ear that I just
Okay.
can't watch the English version. It just doesn't make sense to me, to my brain.
Interesting.
So
Well, one's definitely shorter than the other.
that is very true. That is very true. But here, I just think the dub technically sounds better 40 years later than the sub. So, but yeah, what's your first thought?
I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad this experience happened. I don't want to point fingers at the fans who didn't see it and could have, but you missed out. How often are we going to see Gundam on the big screen? It's exceptionally rare. And so I feel like this is something that it was good to do, not just to support, Sunrise and Bandai, but also to experience what Gundam could be like theatrically, because there's a new series out on Netflix that's Gundam, and the live action is also on its way of coming out. So I feel like we're, as society becomes much more, open to science fiction, fantasy, and things like that. The heyday and rise of Marvel and superheroes and D&D and now 40K. I think Gundam's really getting ready to swing at the ball, and it could be a home run depending on how things play out.
Yeah, I agree. It was, to me, because I hadn't seen them. I think, like you, I think I had at least seen some clips and stuff, but I never
Right,
made
yeah.
a big effort to go watch them because I was like, well, I've already seen the show. I don't need to see these. But I'm glad that my first experience of watching them all the way through was on a theater screen in a theater. That's how they were shown in Japan. That's what they were edited for. That's what they were cut for. I'm happy we made it out to all of them, not just one, in a short
Yeah.
period of time. I wish there were more people there, and I hope that if you wanted to see them, you got out to see them.
Yeah. Some choices they made, though, as far as what to cut and what to keep in, I do scratch my head. Like, we see Makuve, like, 3 times, and 2 of those times he, like, flicks his fingernail against, like, a priceless vase that I assume is some priceless antique that he's sending back to Caecilia. At least he did in the original series, I think.
He loves that vase, Isaac. Don't take his vase away.
But in the course of a short movie, and this is the only movie Makuve's in, he's only in the final movie, we we see Makuve 3 times, but we don't see him fight Amuro, and we don't see him die. So if this was your only viewing of it, you would assume Makuve either died off screen or was one of the lucky few that managed to survive the war.
I'm glad you asked that, Isaac. So I did look up what happened to Makuve in sort of the movie version.
Sure.
As you said, after we got done, I think in the 3rd movie, right, they just skipped the Gion battle altogether. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so you're left to kind of think, okay, well, he must have survived because I didn't see him die. But apparently, in the Stars Deleted Affair manga, they show what happens to him after the movie version.
2 timelines, yeah.
And he escapes a Bawaku with Zena and Maneva but then he gets in the Gyan and he escorts them with Char, but he's killed in the battle by a Magellan. So
Wow.
poor guy got shot down by a Magellan off screen.
That's a pretty rare death. You don't see
Yeah.
Magellans taking out mobile suits that often.
Yeah, maybe he was too busy like fumbling with the vase.
Yeah. Well, he was probably going at a slow speed if they're escorting like a lifeboat, you know. God,
Yeah.
what were Minerva and her mom doing on a Bawaku? I assume they fled from Solomon to the
To
next
a
nearest
Bawaku,
fortress,
probably.
which is
Yeah.
not where you want to flee to.
No, no, probably not the best place to flee to given the sequence of events.
Yeah.
So they had to get out of there.
God, how did they not get priority to like go from a Bawaku to the Xi'an homeland, given their rank? That was a mess up.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they didn't want to go there. Maybe they figured the Federation would be going there very soon as well. So
So we'll stay at the military fortress between us and between the Federation and the Xi'an homeland. Sure.
I believe after Baoku, I believe they went to Axis, obviously. So
Yeah.
they were trying to get further away. But to your overall point, though, this is only 3 movies. You got 3 movies to tell 42 episodes?
Yeah.
That's a hard task, Isaac. And as we saw with the 0083 movie, it's even hard to just tell 13 episodes in one movie. So they did cut a lot of stuff. There was no Iselina's Revenge. There was no Zacrello, no Salt episode, no hardly any Makuve, no.
Yeah.
And because there was no Makuve, Isaac, there was no nuclear missile.
No Shalia Bull.
No Shalia Bull, that's a big one. No Adzom at all. They cut a lot, and they had to because you just don't have the amount of time to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was an admirable attempt. I'm not sure that you could do better than what they did.
No, not by much. We got what we needed to close out the story.
Because every film was pretty long, right? Every film
Yeah.
was well over 2 hours. We're talking 2 hours, 20 minutes, probably minimum, if I recall. So if you want to add things, you're already out of room to add. For anything that you want to add to these movies, you got to cut something else out.
Pretty much, yeah. It would be a challenge redoing it, then taking all the episodes and coming out with something extremely different.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You might be able to redo it here or there, but I think the result would be of similar quality.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we're not trying to take anything away from it. It was very well done.
No, I think it was very well paced given what they were
Yeah.
trying to do.
I remember the ending itself being somewhat different in the animated series. I think it took longer to find Amuro in the animated series.
Oh, could be.
There was more action, I think, by the kids to help locate him. But
Yeah.
this one, it was kind of a little bit more Amuro sided, which is fine because they really have to nail in the whole new type thing as this movie closes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since Lala shows up and then she's gone almost as quickly.
If you think something happened quick in the TV series, it happens even faster in the movies. That would be one of my biggest criticisms of the movies is if you haven't seen the TV series, you're going to be bombarded with a lot of events and you don't have time to really process them before you move on to the next major event.
Right.
And if you don't have a good background on it, you might be a little lost.
If you watch the movies only and you haven't seen the original series, it'll feel like it's the 3-week war. That's pretty much what it'll feel like it concludes as.
And I think that's maybe an inherent problem for turning a TV series into a movie. It definitely feels like less of a journey through a war. And I think that was a big part of the TV series, getting to know the characters over several months as they travel, painstakingly through this war and struggle through it. Here, they're just kind of thrust in and out, and you can't really necessarily tell how much time is passing.
No, you can't. Even less so in the series. I mean, even less so than in the series. The series, we can kind of feel that maybe a week or two has happened between some episodes. Here, though, it's like you're just going with it.
Yeah, and one thing the series has that the movies don't, which I think people might undervalue, is the series has the narrator every episode, Isaac, drilling into your head the story. And I think that helps you get to know the characters and the lore and the world. Every episode, hearing that narrator telling you a little bit more about the war, about Zeon, etc. Here you get the narrator 3 times. Once as kind of like an intro in movie 1 and then kind of like a recap in movies 2 and 3. But you don't get that every 25 minutes like you would watching every week on a TV show.
That's a great point. We really needed the narrator to sort of hold our hand a lot of the times in the show. But here it's almost like this movie it will reward you if you saw the original series. It's almost better if you saw the original series and then watch this,
Yeah, I definitely agree. At the end when we do our score, I guess, that'll be my ultimate recommendation is to watch the series first and then watch these all you want. They're fun, they're good, and especially go watch them on a theater screen if you can. But I still think I would recommend the series over the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. The series will give you the whole experience. This is something you should only see if you've already seen the original series and you enjoyed it, because otherwise you miss too much. You
Yeah.
really will miss too much. Even if you're short on time, just watch the other series. Break it up into chunks. You'll be all right. Watching the movies as being your only way to consume 0079 is not a good idea. Please don't do it.
I see recommendations kind of like split on this. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, just watch the movies. It covers the main points.
No.
You'll kind of pick it up." But I don't feel. I feel like yeah, it covers the main points, but I don't feel you get all the feeling that goes with it. You don't get you don't get to know the characters as much. You don't feel as bad for them. You don't feel as good for them when they succeed. You just can't replicate the time spent with a TV series. So
Not just that, but like the original series, each episode is 20 minutes maybe,
yeah,
sometimes less. Just watch it. It's not going to be a huge chunk of time. Since it was the original series, the episodes themselves aren't intensely complex. Overall, the whole series does get pretty complex, but, a single episode, not really.
yeah, bite size at a time. I
Yeah,
think it's fine.
so I think you'll absolutely be fine. Once you're done with the whole series, then watch this. Well, maybe not right away. Maybe you want to go straight into Zeta or 0083 or something, or 0080. But this was such a nice little dessert, Brian, for our Gundam consumption, because we were able to say, oh, it's so different than the original series that we saw, and this is different. That character is kind of missing. They didn't do this episode. It was a really good experience overall, though.
Yeah, and so for those of you who are interested in the differences between the TV series and the films, Mark Simmons, the guy who heavily contributed, probably was the main contributor to Gundam the Official Guide, which is something that Isaac and I always quote from the early 2000s. He made a painstakingly detailed breakdown of how movies 1 and 2 differ from the TV series on the forum called Mecha Talk. And he goes through this really cool analysis where he tries to figure out, geographically how the path of the white base differs between the TV series and the films, and he compares that to all the lore Bibles and everything and says, does this make sense? And then he tries to redo the timeline to make it make sense and all this stuff. So I'm not going to list them out because I would sit here for an hour reading his post, but I'll link it in the show notes and you should go check it out and read it if you want. It's an older post now, so a lot of the images that he links to are broken. They don't work anymore, but you can still just read the text, and it's pretty interesting to see, all the logic and thought that goes into it or does not go into it from some of what he says. So, but some of the key differences I thought were good were the introduction of the core booster instead of the G fighter, and the introduction of the second gun cannon after Burrow when they blast off to space. Because the G fighter, I know you had to hate the G fighter in the original series.
It was kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never been a fan of it. Like, what's the closest? We kind of see something like it in Unicorn, don't we? Well, not really.
Well, that one, Double Zeta mode, is kind of like the G Fighter.
Okay.
But I believe the G Fighter was required to be included, so they could sell some toys.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Ironically, you think they'd want to keep in the gun tank to sell that too, but I don't know.
No.
Maybe they got overruled or something.
It's not like they took it away, right? It was still in movies 1 and 2. They just kind of replaced it at the end. But yeah, Core Booster I thought was way cooler than the G Fighter, and it made way more sense. And even overall with the Gundam's Core Fighter, there was a heavy de-emphasis on the Gundam's Core Fighter.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the gun tank in space in the original series never really bothered me that much because multiple times they show underneath it's got boosters. So it can move around. And in space, legs aren't critical.
They're just for show, Isaac. So.
Pretty much. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the one officer told. Was it Shar or was he telling Cassilia? Yeah. Okay, he was telling the Shar. And it always seemed like the gun tank wisely hung back on the white base and just repositioned itself on top of the white base in different areas whenever it needed to be just a turret.
Yeah, it never bothered me either. It was more just, if you take a step back, it is kind of silly, right, having a tank in space. So Tomino-san was probably like, I have an opportunity here. Let's get rid of this tank and get some new animation in there. Because if you think about it, all the scenes with 2 gun cannons were new because they obviously didn't have those before.
Yeah, and they looked pretty great.
They did.
A lot of times seeing them in the hangar bay, getting ready to launch. I was really happy to see them. It was a nice surprise seeing 2 gun cannons, which is exactly what you think they would be loaded out to when they lift Jabber out. Right. But in the original series, it's nope, whatever you got,
Get
Just
out.
get out there, whatever you are, but decoy fleet.
So one thing I noticed, Isaac, which kind of struck me by surprise, but then the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Even starting in the first movie, and especially in the second movie, they start talking about new types way sooner and in way more volume than they do in the TV series. And maybe it just seems like that because everything is compressed into a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
But in the first movie, they started using the term esper, which I think took us both by surprise. And perhaps, I don't recall them using that term in the dub. Maybe they did. It's been a few years now since we rewatched it, but
I don't think so, but yeah.
maybe it's always been translated that way in the sub. I'm not sure. But that I had like a weird, what's that thing where like things that you do, you start to notice them after you've learned about something?
Mandela effect.
Is it the Mandela effect? Okay. Yeah, so there's another one of my favorite podcasts is called Astonishing Legends, and they talk about weird legends and weird stuff. Paranormal, cryptids, all that kind of nonsense that, you may or may not find that interesting. But I just listened to one the other day where it was about a psychic horse named Lady Wonder. And there was a parapsychologist who studied that horse to investigate to see if the horse really was psychic. And that guy who studied the horse, Isaac, was the guy that came up with the term ESP, which is what esper comes from.
Yeah.
I think he studied the horse in like the 1920s or 30s or something. And esper, as far as I can tell, I did some quick research, started in heavy use, at least in science fiction, in the 40s and 50s, to refer to someone who has ESP powers or whatever.
Sure.
So I just thought that was funny. Like my worlds were colliding. I had not heard the term esper in years, and then I listened to this podcast about a stupid psychic horse, and then I go see a Gundam movie, and they start talking about espers, and I was just like, what is going on?
It's kind of an outdated term.
Yeah, you don't hear it much anymore.
No. Nowadays, people would say something like, "Oh, they have a sixth sense," maybe, or they might just say psychic.
Yeah.
But esper it's a pretty much a dated term of its time.
I like it. It's kind of a cool term, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't actually spell it out though in the show, or in the movie, like esper,
Yeah.
and then extrasensory perception, or at least a person that can sense things.
Is that your like Jaburo like scientist voice?
That was actually supposed to be Bright.
Oh, okay.
Talking to Mirai. But yeah, I don't remember it in the original series. I don't remember esper at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if maybe it was only in the sub, and maybe they did just use the term psychic in the dub. That would probably make more sense because a kid's not going to know what the term esper means, but they probably would know what psychic means.
On the same note, a few of the times, this final third movie, they mention the new type theory. Like, Bright doesn't subscribe to the new type theory, or so-and-so doesn't believe in the new type theory. Like, I don't remember them throwing it around that much in the original series. It's been a while, but it's almost like it was a new line added in for this movie to sort of show that it's not quite set in stone. Not everybody believes in new types.
Yeah, they definitely talk really heavily about new types, and especially in the second movie. And I think they go over that Zeon Daikun believe this and that about new types and all this. They do that 2 or 3 times to really get it in your head, because it's not like the TV series. They don't have a ton of episodes to slowly introduce it to you. They got to jam it down your throat for the conclusion to make sense, with Lala. Because they're not even, if they're going to skip Shalia Bull, that was a solid new type episode in the TV series. And if you lose that, you need to supplement with talking about it other ways.
That's a great point.
Have you ever read the original novels, Isaac?
No, not at all. Although, from what I've heard, mainly from you, is they are markedly different.
They are. I mean, it's similar, but yet obviously ends in a very different fashion. Amuro gets killed by a random bazooka fire from like a dome. Wow. But it reminded me more of the novels, how much they talk about new types here. That could just be like me remembering it wrong, because it has been probably 15 years or so since I've read the novels. But I felt like in the novels they definitely talked about new types more, and very similarly to how they talked about it, or how it sort of took a front and center stage in these films.
Now I kind of want to read the novel.
It's good. You should read it. Yeah.
We've never had a Gundam novel reading.
Yeah.
I should. Kind of a spoiler, but aside from the ending, what else is different?
Oh, the biggest thing. I mean, it's been a long time, so I'm not going to remember all the details. But the two biggest things that comes to mind are three. I'll say 3 biggest things. So 1, Amuro and Sayla have a relationship. They become a definite couple. Amuro gets the G3 Gundam in the novels, and then I believe the White Base joins forces with Char at the end.
Wow.
Yeah, because Amuro's dead, so you're gonna need some help.
okay, is the white base destroyed at that point, or does he like just help them in the Zeong, or is there even a Zeong? Is there a Gelgoog?
I don't think there's a Zeong, but
I
I
didn't
don't
think
remember.
so.
It's been a while. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm even kind of doubting the Shard teaming up thing. That could be wrong too, but I'm pretty sure that happens. And I don't want to say it's like the best team up in the world. I think it's just kind of a moment of crisis for both Char and them, and they kind of have to join forces to either finish off the last zombie or take out the solar ray or whatever's happening at the end of the novel. You can go look it up, I'm sure, on the wiki about how it ends. But yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it. If you're a Gundam fan, I highly recommend reading them one day. It's all in one paperback. It's not like you have to buy 3 things. It's not super long. Yeah, we can do a reading one day. That'd be fun.
Sounds good. We'll read it to the audience.
But that's where I think a lot of, because I've said in the past, Isaac, about how I wish Char's counterattack had Sayla in it, and how I think the plot would just make much more sense between Amuro and Char if Amuro was still with Sayla. That's where my thought comes from, is because I read the novels.
Yeah, oh god. We're turning into like a multiverse thing where like the movie timeline's different, the book timeline's different.
Anyway, we can resell you the same story again, slightly different. Let's do that.
The multiverse of Gundam madness.
Speaking of Sayla, Isaac, watching the 3rd movie again, I had the same thought when we watched the series. I don't think we brought it up though on the review. I am reminded again that at the end of the series, I always wanted to know what would have happened if Char, Sayla, and Amuro got to finish that last conversation they were having before the explosion like blew them away. Because remember, Char was like, join forces with me. Given everything that's happening, like they're just talking. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable suggestion. And then the explosion goes off and it knocks Amuro away, and Char saves Sayla and they depart. But had they finished that conversation, like the rest of their lives may have been different.
Right, especially like I don't know how much time Char has to explain everything that happened in Zeon.
Right, yeah.
But Amuro sounds like the type of guy that he'd hear him out.
Yeah, that's what I'm
He's
saying. It
heard
could have
worse.
led to a really long discussion between the two, and then maybe things would have been different after that.
God, that's this other timeline. Where
Yes.
Char and Amuro go off and they make oh god, what would it even be called? Daikon.
I don't know, but I'm sure if Amuro had gone with Char instead of going back to the Federation, he wouldn't have been stonewalled by the Federation for years without any good mobile suit in that house in Zeta, where they're just like not letting him leave. Maybe Char would have taken him to Axis.
Well, I don't think he'd go.
Yeah, maybe not, but
I could see Amuro going somewhere more kind of neutral, like Luna. He'd say, "Look, that's 2 Zeon for me. I've just been fighting Zeons my whole life, and you want to take me to the asteroid where the diehards are going?"
Right? Yeah, I think my point is just Char would get him out of that house if they were better friends.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've always wondered about that, but
how interesting. God, now I feel like watching Zeta.
Well, first, I think next we're going to watch, obviously, the one on Netflix, because we're going to put some trivia questions about it in our Anime Expo Chibi 2024 Gundam Trivia, which you should all fly across the United States to attend.
If you're not in the state of California, take out your credit card and book yourself a hotel room and get an airline ticket. It'll be worth the debt.
Spend thousands of dollars to come see 50 minutes of Gundam trivia.
To sit in a room and potentially answer a Gundam question.
I'll make a promise. If you fly out here to Gundam trivia, I'll make sure you get a question in the queue. How's that?
Wow.
Even trade, right?
How are we going to verify that? We need proof of their ticket.
Yeah, bring proof of your airline purchase. And you can spend $1,000 to fly over here to win like a $10 SD model kit.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
Think of the selfies you can take, though.
They will be great, I promise you.
At Chibi Expo.
Isaac, the one thing that I want to reassure the listeners that was not skipped from the movies, that was definitely included, I felt like Tomino-san purposely ensured that all slap scenes were included.
He sure did. Everybody gets slapped here. Amuro, Mirai. Oh, did we not see Bright slap?
No, Bright got slapped, I think, by someone. Yeah. That first movie has the most slaps, by far.
And you know what? They're on the Federation side. Shows you the real side you should be on.
Definitely left in the Slugger slapped a Mirai, and then she falls in love with him.
We have to remember, Slager doesn't slap her. He backhands her.
He does.
My God. I had to see it a second time for me to remember that I forgot. I thought he slaps her, but he backhands her. Oh, boy. And the dialogue is much the same in the English version, if I remember. He's kind of scolding her for not taking Cameron Bloom's help, even though they're in a pickle and could conceivably be destroyed at a moment's notice. And not the best decision, Mirai.
No, Mirai's, she's an interesting one. We could do a whole episode on the psychology of her choices in men.
It's coming up. Mind of Mirai.
There you go. Alliteration. If it has alliteration, we got to do it.
Mina Mirai, what the hell was she thinking?
What I don't remember, maybe it was in the dub, but in this one, after Slager died, doesn't Bright say like, well, he had to die at some point? I was like, man, that is cold.
He does say something kind of cold, if I remember. I don't think it was him. It was something along those lines, like, it was
inevitable or something like that.
Yeah, something very fatalistic, and like, yeah, it does come off as cold. At the same time, I was like, well,
he's not wrong.
No, because I mean, Bright's the captain of the ship.
Right,
He's seeing kind of death left and right. At the same time, like you can kind of say that about anybody on the ship. Anybody could be killed kind of at any moment, depending on if a beam cannon hits the bridge.
Right.
But yeah, that was pretty cold, and Bright was kind of right. All he had to do was wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll wait till you get Slager out of your system.
It worked out. Yeah. The one scene that I don't remember from the TV series, which may have been entirely new, but I could just be remembering it's wrong. But I was glad that it was in the film because I thought it really added a lot. Was in film 2. This was the discussion, very brief discussion. I'm talking 30 seconds tops, Isaac, between Matilda and Sayla. That is just them talking, and Sayla basically implies that she knows Matilda does more than just supplies. And Matilda says, well, as you know, someone who can do anything is worth their weight in gold. Sayla has clearly figured out that Matilda is kind of like Revel's right-hand woman for doing these weird things in the battlefield, or basically whatever needs to be done. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't remember that in TV series, but I could be wrong.
No, I don't remember that either. That was very insightful, though. Yeah. God, what a waste then for Revel to have her out in like a combat situation and get taken out. Then again, Revel himself is kind of always in a combat situation, too.
Yeah, the guy's always got a target on his back.
Yeah, Abalaku, under attack. Odessa, under attack. Going to meet the peace negotiations, under attack. Solomon, under attack.
Under major attack.
Yeah. Solar Ray was so great. Although, I remember in the animated series, like this is such a small detail, I remember Dagwin taking a much larger fleet to go meet Revel. Like a fleet comparable to Revel size.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the destruction of that fleet with him at the same time was also a double blow to Zeon because, you not only took out Dagwin, but you took out a lot of our troops.
Yeah, absolutely.
So...
yeah, Girin's no stranger to displacing or killing his own troops, so...
No, he's not, but this was not done right, Girin.
I also liked, Isaac, how having, just read, for example, the plot to assassinate Girin, we were much more hyper aware of the side characters that were probably always there. We just didn't really notice them quite as much, like Darcia and Cecilia, Lady Cecilia.
Yeah. God, Darcy had one scene, and I saw him and I was so excited because of all the lore content we've been getting in the side stories of just Darcia.
Yep, and we saw Cecilia in her red uniform. I was like, there it is, the red uniform.
No lines, just standing there. Was like, oh, there she is. She is involved.
That's how you know you're a true nerd about whatever it is you're watching. When you're like, there's the girl who doesn't have any lines, but I know all about her because she's wearing the red uniform.
You have to read her story and side story manga number 33. Yeah.
I'm the same person who's like, why were we the only ones in the theater? Probably because we're the only ones in the tri-state area that's read like the plot to assassinate Girin, but that's okay.
The tri-state area? Are we in the East Coast now?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
By tri-state, of course, we mean the warm, heated triangle.
Yeah,
California,
Arizona, Nevada, and California.
Nevada, yeah. Here in the Southwest Dust Bowl, we call ourselves the Taco Triangle.
Our tacos are pretty good, though. If you come to Anime Expo Chibi, you should get some tacos.
Yeah. If you come to California, we're just telling you, we're the Golden State for a reason. Everything here is pretty great. The food, the weather. That's about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Property prices, pretty difficult to deal with. Those aren't too good. But
unless you own them, in which case your assets increased in value.
Those are my main points, Isaac. So, you got anything else, or?
Just that I'd hit you with a hypothetical.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we already saw... we saw and torpedoed the 003 movie. Based on our one review of it.
That was not
before
good.
Bandai. Sunrise was, get this thing off our YouTube channel. Would you conceivably see, a Seed movie? A Wing movie?
No, you know what? I've seen enough Seed. I don't need to see any more Seed for the time being. If I was to watch Seed in a theater, I would want to see Freedom in the theater. again.
Freedom. I love how it cut out the blackout right at the
God,
perfect scene.
that was terrible. What I would see in theaters, Isaac, which I also have never seen, is the Zeta compilation films.
Oh, I'd love to see that in theaters. That'd be the best. Also, like, I don't think this exists, but a double Zeta movie would be great, especially one that addresses how slapstick it was and kind of maybe limits that, because I heard it wasn't that good the first half.
I actually kind of like Double Zeta, even the slapstick. I think Double Zeta is actually really good. We're pretty far away from reviewing Double Zeta, but I think some of the comedy in Double Zeta is actually really funny. At least I laughed out loud.
Okay, well, they went with a different tone. Then again, I guess they could get away with it, because situation-wise, like, they're not on a white base. They're kind of junkyard kids, so they're not going to be depressed, adults that have been through multiple wars. They're just kind of getting by.
Yeah, and Judah is just the ultimate, like, straight to the point guy. He acts way more level-headed and logical than most Gundam protagonists, so it's kind of funny to see him navigate the same traps, that whiny Amuro and emotional Camille just couldn't deal with.
I see. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, what's the other Gundam movie that we saw? G Savior.
Oh,
Would
yeah.
you see G Savior subbed?
Yeah, so weren't we saying that a G Savior screening at an anime expo would be great?
It'd be pretty funny, especially if like the Gundam fans knew about it.
Yeah, if you could pack a theater full of Gundam fans to watch G Savior, I think it would be a hoot.
Oh god, G Savior. What were your opinions on it the last time we saw it? Was it not good or kind of okay?
I think what I said was they did is the best they could with, the
Yeah.
budget they had and the resources they had and probably the task that they were given. The plot wasn't terrible conceptually. The CG was pretty ugly, man. Like, looking
Yeah.
back at it. I think at the time it was probably pretty cool, but those mobile suits look like, there's a quote from, you ever watch Eastbound and Down, Isaac?
No, I heard of it though.
Oh, hilarious show. But there's a part where Kenny Powers is talking about a banner that someone made, and the guy didn't use like high res enough images to make the banner, and so he says it looks like a big bag of mashed up people, and that's what the mobile suits in that show look like. You can't tell what the hell you're looking at.
It's very PlayStation 2 intro cinematic for like a sci-fi movie or game.
Very Beast Wars, very reboot.
Right before the main menu loads on the PlayStation 2, like this is the intro that tells you about like how the Mars League is fighting Earth Force. And it's up to you to pilot a space ranger to defeat them.
Yeah, so I thought it was, whatever. We have a whole review on it. It was not as bad as I remembered it to be.
I mean, I think I already said this episode, but I'll see almost any Gundam content in theaters.
Here's what I would want to see, Isaac, and I think we're actually going to do this.
Ooh, F91.
Well, in the sense that we're going to watch the movies rather than the show, and that is to watch the G-Reco movies, because I believe Tomino, he put a lot of effort into putting them into movie form, and I think the pacing is, from what I heard, is a lot better. The plot is clearer, I think, in the movies. You listeners, if you disagree, let me know in the comments, but from what I've read, people suggest watching the films for G-Reco over the series.
I've heard such bad things about Reconquista.
I think a lot of that might, or some portion of that, I think is solved by the films. So there are people who really love G-Reco, so, I want to give it a shot, but...
So you're essentially saying, kind of reading between the lines, that he had to go back and correct. And he chose movie format. Okay. Yeah. He was like, you know what? Someone in the studio meddled, or we just didn't hit the landing. Whatever. We're gonna do it again.
Yeah, I just don't think they had enough time, and that's not necessarily apples to apples with this situation, because I think G-Reco was only 26 episodes, if I recall, and it got 5 compilation movies. So
wow,
it's almost like re-editing the entire series if you think about it.
And then new content if they decided to do that. Okay, so it's the remastered, really.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Director's cut.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The director's remastered cut edition.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So we'll go with that one, I figure.
Sure, yeah.
When we get there, but...
Give it a try.
All right, Isaac, how many Haros are you going to give these? I'm going to give the Mobile Suit Gundam compilation films 8 out of 10 Haros. I don't think it's as good as this TV series. I think it covers the key points, but I would recommend to watch the series if you can, dubbed. The series feels more like a journey through war, whereas the movies are just kind of the same series of events, but in rapid succession. Although they are well-paced and probably the best attempt that you could do at doing what we're trying to do here. But I do think most of the other characters besides Amuro lose a lot of their character development other than getting their one main moment. That being like, Miharu with Kai and Slager with Mirai and Sayla talking to Char. But outside of that, you don't get all the little in-between moments that make them more memorable and make you love them. So I'm going with 8 out of 10.
I enjoyed these thoroughly. I think they were a great ride. Beautiful experience seeing them in the movie theater. So for that reason, going to give it 4 out of 5 Haros. Absolutely recommend it. If you ever get the chance to see Gundam in theaters, don't even think about it. Just go see it because you're a Gundam fan.
That's right. And so listeners, let us know if you made it out to Anime Expo Cinema Nights and saw any of these or all of these, hopefully, in theaters. Let us know what your thoughts were. And to Isaac's point, what other Gundam movies would you like to see in theaters if they were to release them?
Yeah, which could be made into a movie. Yeah, definitely.
I think
definitely.
so.
That's
I agree.
prime.
Yeah. All right, Isaac, take us away.
All right, listeners, before you go to sleep tonight, stand next to your bed, put your hands together, look up at the ceiling, get on your knees. That was the wrong order. And hail Zeon.
Good night, everybody.